Nutrition in plants. Components of food are called nutrients such as carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. Different modes of nutrition in plants. Nutrition is the mode of taking food by an organism and its utilization by the body. Some modes of nutrition in plants are as follows. Autotrophs, green plants that can synthesize food for themselves by the process of photosynthesis, are called autotrophs, e.g., grass, wheat, etc. Heterotrophs, like humans and animals, some plants are dependent on other plants, autotrophs, for their food supply and they are called heterotrophs. E.g., cuscuta, a marble, takes ready-made food from the plant on which it climbs. The plant on which it climbs is called the host. Since it deprives the host of valuable nutrients, cuscuta is called the parasite. Saprotrophs, many fungi derive nutrition from dead and decaying matter. They are called saprotrophs such as mushrooms. Insectivorous, few plants can trap insects and digest them. Such insect-eating plants are called insectivorous plants. They may be green or of some other color. The pitcher-like or jug-like structure in such plants is the modified part of the leaf. Symbiosis, some organisms live together and share both shelter and nutrients. This relationship is called symbiosis. E.g., lichen is a symbiotic association between algae, chlorophyll-containing partner, and fungus. The fungus provides shelter, water, and minerals to the algae and, in return, the algae prepare and provides food to the fungus. About the cell. Bodies of living organisms are made of tiny units called cells. Cell is enclosed by a thin outer boundary called cell membrane. Most cells have a distinct, centrally located spherical structure called the nucleus. Nucleus is surrounded by a jelly-like substance called cytoplasm. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process by which green plants and certain other organisms transform light energy into chemical energy. Water and minerals present in the soil are absorbed by the roots and transported to the leaves. Carbon dioxide from air is taken in through the tiny pores present on the surface of leaves. These pores are surrounded by guard cells. Such pores are called stomata. The leaves have a green pigment called chlorophyll which helps leaves to capture the energy of the sunlight. The synthesis of food occurs in the presence of sunlight, thus called photosynthesis. It is a unique process on the earth. The solar energy is captured by the leaves and stored in the plant in the form of food. During photosynthesis, chlorophyll-containing cells of leaves, in the presence of sunlight, use carbon dioxide and water to synthesize carbohydrates. Oxygen is also released during the process. The process can be represented in an equation. Carbohydrate plus oxygen. Besides leaves, photosynthesis also takes place in other green parts of the plant. For example, desert plants have spine-like leaves and green stems that carry out photosynthesis. The leaves other than green also have chlorophyll. In such plants, a large amount of red, brown, and other pigments masks the green color. Algae can also prepare their food by photosynthesis. Synthesis of plant food other than carbohydrates. Proteins are another major nutrient. These are nitrogenous substances. Plants cannot absorb nitrogen in gaseous form. Some root-living soil bacteria convert gaseous nitrogen into a usable form, and this form is absorbed by the plants along with water. There, number 19F, lizard used by the farmers also adds nitrogen directly to the soil in the usable form. In this way, the plants fulfill their requirements of nitrogen along with the other cons, number 19F, nutrients. Plants can then synthesize proteins and vitamins. Nutrient replenishment in soil. Fertilizers and manures are used to enrich the soil. These contain nutrients such as nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, etc. The bacterium called rhizobium can take atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into a usable form. Rhizobium lives in the roots of the gram, peas, moong, beans, and other legumes and provides them with nitrogen. In return, the plants provide food and shelter to the bacteria. Thus, they have a symbiotic. Interesting points. Chlorophyll, water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight are the essence, number 19F, our requirements for photosynthesis. Complex chemical substances such as carbohydrates are the products of photosynthesis.
Animal nutrition includes the nutrient requirement, mode of intake of food, and its utilization in the body. Our food includes required nutrients such as carbohydrates, proteins, fats, etc. Mode of intake of food. The mode of taking food into the body varies in different organisms. Bees and hummingbirds suck the nectar of plants. Infants of humans and many other animals feed on mother's milk. Snakes, like pythons, swallow the animals they prey upon. Some aquatic animals filter tiny food particles floating nearby and feed upon them. Nutrient utilization. Complex substances, such as carbohydrates, cannot be utilized as such and are broken down into simpler substances. This breakdown of complex components of food into simpler substances is called digestion. For example, carbohydrates get broken into simple sugars such as glucose, fats into fatty acids and glycerol, and proteins into amino acids. Digestion in humans' food is taken through the mouth. It is then digested and utilized, and the unused part is defecated. The human digestive system consists of the alimentary canal and secretory glands. The alimentary canal, digestive tract, is a continuous canal that begins at the buccal cavity and ends at the anus. It consists of the buccal cavity, food pipe or esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, ending in the rectum, and the anus. The main digestive glands, which secrete digestive juices, are salivary glands, liver, and pancreas. Digestion of carbohydrates, like starch, begins in the buccal cavity. The digestion of protein starts in the stomach, the bile secreted from the liver, the pancreatic juice from the pancreas, and the digestive juice from the intestinal wall complete the digestion of all components of food in the small intestine. The digested food is absorbed in the blood vessels from the small intestine. The nutrient utilization process involves 1. Ingestion, 2. Digestion, 3. Absorption, 4. Assimilation, and 5. Egestion. Mouth and buccal cavity. The process of taking food into the body through the mouth is called ingestion. Food is then chewed by teeth and broken down mechanically into small pieces. Our teeth vary in appearance and perform different functions such as cutting and biting teeth, incisor piercing and tearing teeth, canine, chewing and crushing teeth, premolar chewing and grinding teeth, molar. The tongue mixes saliva with the food during chewing and helps in swallowing food. It has taste buds that detect different tastes of food, such as sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. Salivary glands present in our mouth secrete saliva, which breaks down the starch into sugars. Food pipe esophagus. The swallowed food passes into the food pipe or esophagus. Food is pushed down by the movement of the wall of the food pipe. Stomach. The stomach is a flat J-shaped, thick-walled bag and is the widest part of the alimentary canal. It receives food from the food pipe at one end and opens into the small intestine at the other. The inner lining of the stomach secretes mucus, hydrochloric acid, and digestive juices. The mucus protects the lining of the stomach. The acid kills many bacteria that enter along with the food and makes the medium in the stomach acidic and helps the digestive juices to act. The digestive juices break down the proteins into simpler substances. Small intestine. The small intestine is highly coiled and is about 7.5 meters long. It receives secretions from the liver and the pancreas. Besides, its wall also secretes juices. Liver. It is a reddish-brown gland situated in the upper part of the abdomen on the right side. It is the largest gland in the body. It secretes bile juice that is stored in a sac called the gallbladder. Bile plays an important role in the digestion of fats. Pancreas. It is a large cream-colored gland located just below the stomach. The pancreatic juice acts on carbohydrates, fats, and proteins and changes them into simpler forms. The partly digested food now reaches the lower part of the small intestine, where the intestinal juice completes the digestion of all components of the food. Absorption in the small intestine. The digested food can now pass into the blood vessels in the wall of the intestine. This process is called absorption. The inner walls of the small intestine have thousands of finger-like outgrowths. These are called villi, singular villus. The villi increase the surface area for absorption of the digested food. Each villus has a network of thin and small blood vessels close to its surface. The surface of the villi absorbs the digested food materials. The absorbed substances are transported via the blood vessels to different organs of the body, where they are used to build complex substances such as the proteins required by the body. This is called assimilation. In the cells, glucose breaks down with the help of oxygen into carbon dioxide and water, and energy is released. The food that remains undigested and unabsorbed enters the large intestine. Large intestine. The large intestine is wider and shorter than the small intestine. It is about 1.5 meters in length. Its function is to absorb water and some salts from the undigested food material. The remaining waste passes into the rectum and remains there as semi-solid faces. The fecal matter is removed through the anus from time to time. This is called egestion. Digestion in grass-eating animals. Grass-eating animals such as cows, buffaloes quickly swallow the grass and store it in a part of the stomach called rumen. Food gets partially digested in the rumen and is called cud. Later the cud returns to the mouth in small lumps and the animal chews it. This process is called rumination, and these animals are called ruminants. The grass is rich in cellulose, a type of carbohydrate. In ruminants, like cattle, deer, etc., bacteria present in rumen helps in the digestion of cellulose. Animals like horses, rabbits, etc., have a large sac-like structure called caecum between the esophagus and the small intestine. The cellulose of the food is digested here by the action of certain bacteria that are not present in humans. Feeding and digestion in amoeba. Many small organisms do not have a mouth and a digestive system, e.g., amoeba. It is a microscopic single-celled organism found in pond water. It has a cell membrane, a rounded, dense nucleus, and many small bubble-like vacuoles in its cytoplasm. It pushes out one or more finger-like projections, called pseudopodia, which act as false feet for movement and capture of food. Amoeba feeds on some microscopic organisms. When it senses food, it pushes out pseudopodia around the food particle and engulfs it. The food becomes trapped in a food vacuole. Digestive juices are secreted into the food vacuole. They act on the food and break it down into simpler substances. Gradually, the digested food is absorbed. The undigested residue of the food is expelled outside by the vacuole. Interesting points. Starfish feeds on animals covered by hard shells of calcium carbonate. After opening the shell, the starfish pops out its stomach through its mouth to eat the soft animal inside the shell. The stomach then goes back into the body, and the food is slowly digested. The working of the stomach was discovered by William Beaumont in 1822. Diarrhea is a disease that may be caused by an infection, food poisoning, or indigestion. Fibers like cotton, jute, etc. are obtained from plants, and fibers like wool and silk are obtained from animals. Wool is obtained from the fleece, hair of sheep or yak. Silk fibers come from cocoons of the silk moth. The wool comes from sheep, goat, yak, and other hair-bearing animals. The hairy skin of the sheep has two types of fibers that form its fleece. 1, coarse beard hair, and 2, fine soft underhair close to the skin. The fine hairs provide the fibers for making wool. Some breeds of sheep possess only fine underhair. Their parents are specially chosen to give birth to sheep which have only soft underhair. This process of selecting parents is termed selective breeding. Animals that yield wool. Several breeds of sheep that are found in different parts of our country are as follows. Yak wool is common in Tibet and Ladakh. Mohair is obtained from Angora goats found in hilly regions such as Jammu and Kashmir. The underfur of the Kashmiri goat is soft. It is woven into fine shawls called pashmina shawls. The fur, hair on the body of camels is also used as wool. Llama and alpaca, found in South America, also yield wool. From fibers to wool, for obtaining wool, sheep are reared. Their hair is cut and processed into wool. Rearing and breeding of sheep. Sheep are herbivores and prefer grass and leaves. They also feed on a mixture of pulses, corn, jowar, oil cakes, and minerals. In winter, sheep are kept indoors and fed on leaves, grain, and dry fodder. Once the reared sheep have developed a thick growth of hair, hair is shaved off for getting wool. Processing of fibers into wool. The processing of fiber into wool can be represented as follows. Shearing, scouring, sorting, cleaning of burrs, dyeing, rolling the wool which is used for knitting sweaters or weaving shawls is the finished product of long process, which involves the following steps. Step I. The fleece of the sheep along with thin layer of skin is removed from its body. This process is called shearing. Step 2. The sheared skin with hair is thoroughly washed in tanks to remove grease, dust, and dirt. This is called scouring. Step 3. After scouring, sorting of hairs is done based on different textures. The small fluffy fibers, called burrs, are picked out from the hair. The fibers are scoured again dried. This is the wool ready to be drawn into fibers. Step 3. The fibers are dyed in various colors, as the natural fleece of sheep and goats is black, brown, white. Step 5. The fibers are straightened, combed, and rolled into yarn. Longer fibers are made into wool for sweaters and shorter fibers are spun and woven into woolen cloth. Additional information. Risks faced by workers in any industry are called occupational hazards. Wool fiber sorting job carries risk as sometimes workers might get infected by bacterium, anthrax, which causes a fatal blood disease called sorter's disease. Silk fibers are also animal fibers. Silkworms spin the silk fibers. The rearing of silkworms for obtaining silk called sericulture. The silk yarn, threaded, is obtained from the cocoon of the silk moth. There is a variety of silk moths that look very different from one another, and the silk yarn they yield is different in texture, coarse, smooth, shiny, etc. Tasser silk, muga silk, airy silk, kosa silk, etc. are obtained from cocoons spun by different types of moths. The most common silk moth is the mulberry silk moth. The silk fiber from the cocoon of this moth is soft, lustrous, and elastic, and can be dyed in beautiful colors. Sericulture is a very old occupation in India. India produces plenty of silk on a commercial scale, and ranks among the leading silk-producing countries. China leads the world in silk production. Life history of silk moth. The female silk moth lays eggs, from which hatch larvae which are called caterpillars or silkworms. They grow in size, and when the caterpillar is ready to enter the next stage of its life history called pupa, it first weaves net to hold itself. Then it swings its head from side to side in the form of the figure of 8, 8. During these movements of the head, the caterpillar secretes fiber made of protein that hardens on exposure to air and becomes silk fiber. Soon the caterpillar completely covers itself with silk fibers and turns into pupa. This covering is known as a cocoon. The further development of the pupa into moth continues inside the cocoon. From cocoon to silk for obtaining silk, moths are reared, and their cocoons are collected to get silk threads. Rearing silkworms, a female silk moth lays hundreds of eggs at a time. Eggs are stored carefully on strips of cloth or paper. Eggs are warmed to a suitable temperature for the larvae to hatch from eggs. This is done when mulberry trees bear a fresh crop of leaves. The larvae, called caterpillars or silkworms, eat day and night and increase enormously in size. The larvae are kept in clean bamboo trays along with freshly chopped mulberry leaves. After 25 to 30 days, the caterpillars stop eating and move to a tiny chamber of bamboo in the tray to spin cocoons. Caterpillar or silkworm spins the cocoon inside, which develops the silk moth. Processing silk. A pile of cocoons is used for obtaining silk fibers. The cocoons are kept under the sun or boiled or exposed to steam. The silk fibers separate out. The process of taking out threads from the cocoon for use as silk is called reeling the silk. Silk fibers are then spun into silk threads, which are woven into silk cloth by weavers. The processing of fiber to fabric is an important industry and has major contribution in providing employment. HEAT 4. Key terms and facts. Temperature is a measure of the degree of hotness of an object. Clinical thermometer is used to measure our body temperature. Its range is from 35 C to 42 C. The normal temperature of the human body is 37 C. Mercury is used in these thermometers and is a toxic substance. Digital thermometers are available which do not use mercury. For other purposes, laboratory thermometers are used, and their range is from 10 C to 110 C. The heat flows from a body at a higher temperature to a body at a lower temperature. There are 3 ways in which heat can flow: conduction, convection, and radiation. In solids, generally, the heat is transferred by conduction. The materials which allow heat to pass through them easily are conductors of heat. For example, aluminum, iron, and copper. The materials which do not allow heat to pass through them easily are called insulators. For example, plastic and wood. The water and air are poor conductors of heat. In liquids and gases, the heat is transferred by convection. No medium is required for the transfer of heat by radiation. From the sun, the heat comes to us by another process known as radiation. All hot bodies radiate heat. Dark surfaces absorb more heat, and hence dark-colored clothes are more comfortable in the winter. On the contrary, light-colored clothes reflect most of the heat and are more comfortable to wear in the summer. Wool is a poor conductor of heat. Air gets trapped in between the wool fibers and prevents the flow of heat from our body to the cold surroundings, making us feel warm. An interesting phenomenon: sea breeze and land breeze during the day. The land gets heated faster than the water. The air over the land becomes hotter and rises up. The cooler air from the sea rushes in towards the land to take its place. The warm air from the land moves towards the sea to complete the cycle. The air from the sea is called the sea breeze. At night, it is exactly the reverse. The water cools down more slowly than the land, so the cool air from the land moves towards the sea. This is called the land breeze. Acids are sour in taste. For example, lemon juice, vinegar, etc. Bases are generally bitter in taste and feel soapy on touching. For example, baking soda. An acid and a base neutralize each other and form a salt. Special types of substances are used to test whether a substance is acidic or basic. These substances are known as indicators. The indicators change their color when added to an acidic or basic solution. Litmus, turmeric, China rose petals, godhal, etc. are some of the naturally occurring indicators. Litmus. It is extracted from lichens and has mauve, purple color in distilled water. When added to an acidic solution, it turns red, and when added to a basic solution, it turns blue. Acids, bases, and salts. Acids found in common substances: name of acid found in acetic acid, vinegar, formic acid, and sting, citric acid, citrus fruits such as oranges, lemons, etc. Lactic acid, curd, oxalic acid, spinach, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, amla, citrus fruits, tartaric acid, tamarind, grapes, unripe mangoes, etc. Base found in common substances: name of base found in calcium hydroxide, lime water, ammonium hydroxide, window cleaner, sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, soap, magnesium, hydroxide, milk of magnesia. Turmeric. Turmeric remains yellow in acid and neutral substances, but turns red with bases. China rose. China rose indicator turns acidic solutions to dark pink, magenta, and basic solutions to green. The reaction between an acid and a base is known as neutralization. Salt and water are produced in this process with the evolution of heat. Acid-base salt water heat, hydrochloric acid, HCl, sodium hydroxide, NaO, sodium chloride, NaCl, water, HO2. Neutralization in everyday life. Indigestion. Hydrochloric acid helps in digesting food, but an excess of it in the stomach causes indigestion. Intake of an antacid such as milk of magnesia, base, relieves indigestion. Ant bite. When an ant bites, it injects formic acid into the skin. It can be neutralized by rubbing moist baking soda or calamine solution. Base. Soil treatment. Excessive use of chemical fertilizers makes the soil acidic. Plants do not grow well when the soil is either too acidic or too basic. Acidic soil is treated with bases like quicklime or slaked lime, and if the soil is basic, organic matter, acidic in nature, is added to it. Factory wastes. The wastes of many factories contain acids. If they are allowed to flow into the water bodies, the acids will kill fish and other organisms. The factory wastes are, therefore, neutralized by adding basic substances, terms and facts. Changes in any object or its material can occur because of some internal and external factors. Changes can be of two types, physical and chemical. Physical changes are changes in the physical properties of a substance such as shape, size, color, and states. No new substances are formed in these changes. These changes may be reversible. For example, crushing a small piece of chalk into dust. In chemical changes, one or more new substances are formed. For example, rusting of iron, ozone formation in the atmosphere, etc. In addition to new products, a chemical change may accompany heat, light or gas emission absorption, sound production, change in smell or color, etc. Rusting of iron. Iron, when exposed to air, acquires a film of a brownish substance called rust, and this process is called rusting. Moist air and salt water fasten the rusting process. Rusting can be represented by the following equation. Iron, the oxygen, O, from the air, water, HO, rust, iron oxide. O223 prevention of rusting. It is the prevention of iron particles from exposure to oxygen, or water, or both. It can be done by applying a coat of paint or grease, depositing a layer of a metal like chromium or zinc on iron. This process of depositing a layer of zinc on iron is called galvanization. The ozone layer in our atmosphere protects us from harmful ultraviolet, UV radiation. Ozone is formed naturally by chemical reactions involving UV radiation and atmospheric oxygen. Large crystals of pure substances can be formed from their solutions. The process is called crystallization. The day-to-day condition of the atmosphere at a place with respect to the temperature, humidity, rainfall, wind speed, etc., is called the weather at that place. The temperature, humidity, and other factors are called the elements of the weather. The weather can vary over a very short period. For example, the maximum temperature of the day occurs generally in the afternoon, while the minimum temperature occurs generally in the early morning. All changes in the weather are caused by the sun, as the sun is the primary source of energy. Energy absorbed and reflected by the Earth's surface, oceans, and the atmosphere play important roles in determining the weather at any place. Climate, the average weather pattern taken over a long time, say 25 years, is called the climate of the place. The climate of the western region of India, for example, Rajasthan, is hot and dry, as it receives very little rainfall and has a high temperature. The climate of northeast India is wet, as it receives rain for a major part of the year. Climate and adaptation animals are adapted to survive in the conditions in which they live. Animals living in very cold and hot climates must possess special features to protect themselves against extreme cold or heat. Features and habits that help animals to adapt to their surroundings are a result of the process of evolution. Severe climatic conditions are observed in polar regions, countries like Canada, Iceland, etc., and tropical regions, countries like India, Brazil, etc., of the Earth. Polar regions. These regions are covered with snow and are very cold for most of the year. For 6 months the sun does not set at the poles, while for the other 6 months the sun does not rise. In winters, the temperature can be as low as -37 C. Following are some examples of adaptations in animals of polar regions. Polar bears. They have white fur to camouflage in the snowy white background. It also protects them from their predators and helps in catching their prey. They have 2 thick layers of fur and a fat layer under their skin to protect it from cold. They are so well insulated that they must move slowly and rest often to avoid getting overheated. Physical activities on warm days necessitate cooling. So, the polar bear goes swimming. Its paws are wide and large, which help it not only to swim well but also walk with ease in the snow. While swimming underwater, it can close its nostrils and can remain underwater for long durations. It has a strong sense of smell so that it can catch its prey for food. Penguin. It is also white and merges well with the white background. It has thick skin and a lot of fat to protect it from cold. Penguins huddled together to keep them warm. Like polar bears, penguins are also good swimmers. Their bodies are streamlined, and their feet have webs, making them good swimmers. Migration is another means to escape the harsh, cold conditions. Birds must remain warm to survive. They migrate to warmer regions when winter sets in. They come back after the winter is over. India is one of the destinations of many of these birds. For example, the Siberian crane comes from Siberia to places like Bharatpur in Rajasthan and Sultanpur in Haryana. Mammals, many types of fish, and insects are also known to migrate seasonally. Tropical regions. Following are the main characteristics of these regions. The tropical region has generally a hot climate because of its location around the equator. Even in the coldest month, the temperature is generally higher than 15 C. During hot summers, the temperature may cross 40 C. Days and nights are almost equal in length throughout the year. These regions get plenty of rainfall. An important feature of this region is the tropical rainforests. Tropical rainforests are found in the Western Ghats and Assam in India, Southeast Asia, Central America, and Central Africa. The major types of animals living in the rainforests are monkeys, apes, gorillas, tigers, elephants, leopards, lizards, snakes, birds, and insects. Animals in the tropical rainforests are adapted such that they eat different kinds of food to overcome the competition for food and shelter. Many animals are adapted to living on the trees. For example, red-eyed frog has developed sticky pads on its feet to help it climb trees on which it lives. Monkeys have long tails for grasping branches. Their hands and feet are such that they can easily hold on to the branches. Bird toucan possesses a long, large beak, which helps them to reach the fruits on branches. Many tropical animals have sensitive hearing, sharp eyesight, thick skin, and skin color which helps them to camouflage by blending with the surroundings. This is to protect them from predators. For example, big cats, lions, and tigers have thick skins and sensitive hearing. The lion-tailed macaque, also called beard ape, lives in the rainforests of Western Ghats. They have a silver-white mane that surrounds the head from the cheeks down to its chin. It is a good climber and spends a major part of its life on the tree. It feeds mainly on fruits. It also eats seeds, young leaves, stems, flowers, and buds. This beard ape also searches for insects under the bark of the trees. Since it can get enough food on the trees, it rarely comes down on the ground. The elephant has adapted to the conditions of rainforests in many remarkable ways. It uses its trunk as a nose, because of which it has a strong sense of smell. The trunk is also used for picking up food. Its tusks are modified teeth. These can tear the bark of trees. The large ears of the elephant help it to hear even very soft sounds. They also help the elephant to keep cool in the hot and humid climate of the rainforest. Interesting points. The weather reports are prepared by the Meteorological Department of the government. This department collects data on temperature, wind, etc., and makes the weather prediction. Rainfall is measured by an instrument called the rain gauge. It is a measuring cylinder with a funnel on top to collect rainwater. 8. The moving air is called the wind. Wind speed plays an important role in the formation of storms and cyclones. It is, therefore, important to measure the wind speed. The instrument that measures the wind speed is called an anemometer. Characteristics of air. Air exerts pressure, and this makes leaves of trees, banners, or flags flutter when the wind blows. Increased wind speed is accompanied by reduced air pressure. Air moves from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure. The greater the difference in pressure, the faster the air moves. Air expands on heating and contracts on cooling. Warm air expands and occupies more space. When the same thing occupies more space, it becomes lighter. The warm air is, therefore, lighter than the cold air. Warm air rises up, whereas comparatively cooler air tends to sink towards the Earth's surface. As warm air rises, air pressure at that place is reduced, and the cooler air from the surrounding areas rushes in to fill its place. This sets up convection in the air. Wind currents. Wind currents are concentrated areas of winds resulting from wind movements. These are generated due to uneven heating on the Earth in the following manner. Uneven heating between the equator and the poles. Regions close to the equator get maximum heat from the sun. The air in these regions gets warm and rises up. Cooler air from the regions in the Zorominus 30 degrees latitude belt on either side of the equator moves in. These winds blow from the north and the south towards the equator. At the poles, the air is colder than that at latitudes about 60 degrees. The warm air at these latitudes rises up, and the cold wind from the polar regions rushes in to take its place. In this way, wind circulation is set up from the poles to the warmer latitudes. The winds do not flow in the exact north-south direction. Change in direction is caused by the rotation of the Earth. Uneven heating of land and water. In summer, land near the equator warms up faster, and most of the time the temperature of the land is higher than that of water in the oceans. The air over the land gets heated and rises. This causes the winds to flow from the oceans towards the land. These are monsoon winds. In winter, the direction of the wind flow gets reversed, and it flows from the land to the ocean. The winds from the oceans carry water and bring rain. It is a part of the water cycle. Thunderstorms develop in hot, humid tropical areas like India very frequently. The rising temperatures produce strong upward rising winds. These winds carry water droplets upwards, where they freeze and fall down again. The swift movement of the falling water droplets along with the rising air creates lightning and sound. This event is called a thunderstorm. Cyclones. Water requires heat to change from liquid to vapor state, and hence when water vapor condenses into the liquid, it loses energy in the form of heat. Before cloud formation, water takes up heat from the atmosphere to change into vapor. When water vapor changes back to liquid form as raindrops, this heat is released into the atmosphere. The heat released into the atmosphere warms the air around. The air tends to rise and causes a drop in pressure. More air rushes to the center of the storm, and this cycle gets repeated. This chain of events ends with the formation of a very low pressure system with very high speed, winds revolving around it. This weather condition is called a cyclone. Factors like wind speed, wind direction, temperature, and humidity contribute to the development of cyclones. Structure of a cyclone. The center of a cyclone is a calm area. It is called the eye of the storm. A large cyclone is a violently rotating mass of air in the atmosphere, 10 to 15 kilometers high. The diameter of the eye varies from 10 to 30 kilometers. It is a region free of clouds and has light winds. Around this calm and clear eye, there is a cloud region of about 150 kilometers in size. In this region, there are high-speed winds, 150-250 kilometers, and thick clouds with heavy rain. Away from this region, the wind speed gradually decreases. Naming of the cyclone. Cyclone is known by different names in different parts of the world. For example, it is called a hurricane in the American continent. In the Philippines and Japan, it is called a typhoon. 8.6. Regions near the equator where cyclones form. Fig. 8.7. Image of a tornado. Tornadoes. A tornado is a dark funnel-shaped cloud that reaches from the sky to the ground. Most of the tornadoes are weak. A violent tornado can travel at speeds of about 300 kilometers. Tornadoes may form within cyclones. The diameter of a tornado can be as small as a meter and as large as a km, or even wider. The funnel of a tornado sucks dust, debris, and everything near it at the base due to low pressure, and throws them out near the top. In India, they are not very frequent. Destruction caused by cyclones. Strong winds push water towards the shore even if the storm is hundreds of kilometers away. These are the first indications of an approaching cyclone. The low pressure in the eye lifts the water surface in the center. The rising water may be as high as 312 meters. It appears like a water wall, moving towards the shore. As a result, the seawater enters the low-lying coastal areas and causes a tremendous loss of life and property. Reduction in the fertility of the soil. Extreme flood situation due to continuous heavy rainfall. Damage to houses, trees, communication systems, etc. due to high-speed winds. The whole coastline of India is vulnerable to cyclones, particularly the east coast. The west coast of India is less vulnerable to cyclonic storms both in terms of intensity and frequency of the cyclones. Effective safety measures. A cyclone forecast and warning service. Rapid communication of warnings to the government agencies, the ports, fishermen, ships, and to the public. Construction of cyclone shelters in the cyclone-prone areas, and administrative arrangements for moving people fast to safer places. Interesting points. The word monsoon is derived from the Arabic word mausam, which means season. Soil is a complex mixture of minerals, water, air, organic matter, etc. It is important for life on Earth and is a prominent natural resource. Role of soil. It provides anchorage to the plants and supplies water and nutrients. It is the home for many organisms. It is essential for agriculture, which provides food, clothing, and shelter for all. Soil formation. Soil is formed by the breaking down of rocks by the action of wind, water, and climate. This process is called weathering. The nature of any soil depends upon the rocks from which it has been formed and the type of vegetation that grows in it. Soil is affected by wind, rainfall, temperature, light, and humidity. These are some important climatic factors that affect the soil profile and bring changes in the soil structure. Soil profile. Soil is composed of distinct layers. A vertical section through different layers of the soil is called the soil profile. Each layer differs in feel, texture, color, depth, and chemical composition. These layers are referred to as horizons. Soil. Fig. 9.1. Soil profile. S. The uppermost horizon is called the topsoil or the A horizon. It is generally dark in color as it is rich in humus and minerals. The rotting dead matter in the soil is called humus, and it makes the soil fertile. It is generally soft, porous, and can retain more water. It provides shelter for many living organisms such as worms, rodents, moles, and beetles. The roots of small plants are embedded entirely in this layer. The next layer is called the B horizon or the middle layer. It has a lesser amount of humus but more minerals. This layer is generally harder and more compact. The third layer is the C horizon and is made up of small lumps of rocks with cracks and crevices. Below this layer is the bedrock, which is hard and difficult to dig with spade. Soil types. Weathering of rocks produces small particles of various materials, i.e., sand and clay. Based on the proportion of particles of various sizes, the soil is classified as sandy, clayey, and loamy. Sandy soil. It contains a greater proportion of big particles and there exists large spaces between them. These spaces are filled with air, and hence, sand is well aerated. Water can drain quickly through the spaces between the sand particles. Sandy soils tend to be light, well aerated, and rather dry. Clayey soil. It contains a higher proportion of fine particles. Particles pack tightly together, leaving little space for air. Clayey soils can hold water in the tiny gaps between the particles, so they have less trapped air. They are heavy as they hold more water than the sandy soils. Loamy soil. It has the same amount of large and fine particles. It is a mixture of sand, clay, and another type of soil particle known as silt. Silt occurs as a deposit in riverbeds. The size of the silt particles is between those of sand and clay. The loamy soil also has humus in it. It has the right water-holding capacity for the growth of plants. Properties of soil. Percolation rate of water in soil. It is the movement of the water through the soil. Percolation is highest in the sandy soil and least in the clayey soil. Moisture in soil. It is the water stored in the soil. The capacity of soil to hold water is important for various crops. Absorption of water by soil. It is the capacity of soil to add more water, soil and crops. Different types of soils are used to cultivate different types of crops. Components of soil along with climatic factors determine the types of vegetation and crops that might grow in any region. Both clay and loamy soils are good at retaining water and are suitable for growing cereals like wheat and gram. Loamy soils can drain water easily and are good for growing lentils, masoor, and other pulses. Sandy loam or loam soils can drain water easily and hold plenty of air, thus suitable for cotton. Fine clay soils are rich in humus and are very fertile to grow crops such as wheat. Soils rich in clay and organic matter and having a good capacity to retain water are ideal for paddy. Interesting points. Soil erosion. The removal of land surface by water, wind, or ice is known as erosion. Plant roots firmly bind the soil. In the absence of plants, the soil becomes loose and can be moved by wind and flowing water. Erosion of soil is more severe in areas of little or no surface vegetation, such as desert or bare lands. All living organisms respire to get energy from food. Breathing is a part of respiration. Importance of respiration. All organisms are made of small, microscopic units called cells. Each cell of an organism performs certain functions such as nutrition, transport, excretion, and reproduction. To perform these functions, the cell needs energy. The food has stored energy, which is released during respiration. During respiration, inhaled air is transported to all parts of the body and ultimately to each cell. In the cells, oxygen in the air helps in the breakdown of food. The process of breakdown of food in the cell with the release of energy is called cellular respiration. Types of respiration. In the cell, the food glucose is broken down to release energy. Based on the use of oxygen, respiration is of two types: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. In this, the breakdown of glucose occurs with the use of oxygen. Glucose breaks down into carbon dioxide and water along with the release of energy, as given below. Anaerobic respiration. In this, the breakdown of glucose occurs without the use of oxygen. Glucose breaks down into alcohol and carbon dioxide along with the release of energy, as given below. Some organisms, such as yeast, can survive in the absence of air and get energy through anaerobic respiration. They are called anaerobes. During heavy exercise, fast running, etc., the energy demand is high, but the supply of oxygen to produce the energy is limited. Then, anaerobic respiration takes place in the muscle cells to fulfill the energy demand. The partial breakdown of glucose produces lactic acid. The accumulation of lactic acid causes muscle cramps. A hot water bath or massage improves the circulation of blood. As a result, the supply of oxygen to the muscle cells increases. The increase in the supply of oxygen results in the complete breakdown of lactic acid into carbon dioxide and water. Breathing. Breathing means taking in air rich in oxygen and giving out air rich in carbon dioxide with the help of respiratory organs. The taking in of air rich in oxygen into the body is called inhalation, and giving out of air rich in carbon dioxide is known as exhalation. The number of times a person breathes in a minute is termed as the breathing rate. During breathing, inhalation and exhalation take place alternately. A breath means one inhalation plus one exhalation. Whenever a person needs extra energy, she breathes faster. As a result, more oxygen is supplied to our cells. It speeds up the breakdown of food, and more energy is released. On average, an adult human being at rest breathes in and out 18 times in a minute. During heavy exercise, the breathing rate can increase up to 25 times per minute. Breathing in humans, air is taken through our nostrils. It passes through the nostrils into the nasal cavity. From the nasal cavity, the air reaches the lungs through the windpipe. Lungs are present in the chest cavity. This cavity is surrounded by ribs on the sides. A large, muscular sheet, called a diaphragm, forms the floor of the chest cavity. Breathing involves the movement of the diaphragm and the rib cage. During inhalation, Ribs move up and outwards and the diaphragm moves down. This movement increases space in our chest cavity, and air rushes into the lungs. The lungs get filled with air. During exhalation, ribs move down and inwards, while the diaphragm moves up to its former position. This reduces the size of the chest cavity, and the air is pushed out of the lungs. Fig. 10.1. Human respiratory system. RESPIRATIONNRGAN is MS. 30. Breathing in other animals. Animals such as elephants, cows, snakes, etc. have lungs in their chest cavities like human beings. Other organisms such as cockroaches, fish, earthworms, etc. have distinct breathing mechanisms. Cockroach. A cockroach has small openings on the sides of its body called spiracles. Other insects also have similar openings. Insects have a network of air tubes called tracheae for gas exchange. Oxygen-rich air rushes through spiracles into the tracheal tubes, diffuses into the body tissue, and reaches every cell of the body. Similarly, carbon dioxide from the cells goes into the tracheal tubes and moves out through spiracles. Fish. Gills in fish help them to use oxygen dissolved in water. Gills are projections of the skin. Gills are well supplied with blood vessels for the exchange of gases. Earthworm. Earthworms breathe through their skins. Gases can easily pass through them. Frogs. Frogs have a pair of lungs like human beings. They can also breathe through their skin. Respiration in plants. In plants, each part can independently take in oxygen from the air and give out carbon dioxide. Roots take up air from the air spaces present between the soil particles. Leaves have tiny pores called stomata through which they exchange gases. The breakdown of glucose in the plant cells is like that in other living beings. Fig. 10.5. Roots absorb air from the soil. Interesting points. Yeasts are single-celled organisms. They respire anaerobically and during this process yield alcohol. They are, therefore, used to make wine and beer. Regular traditional breathing exercise, pranayama, can increase the capacity of the lungs to take in more air. Thus, more oxygen can be supplied to the body cells, resulting in the release of more energy. The percentage of oxygen and carbon dioxide in inhaled and exhaled air is different. Fig. 10.6. Inhaled and exhaled air composition. All organisms need food, water, and oxygen for survival. They need to transport all these to various parts of their body. Also, they need to transport wastes to parts from where they can be removed. Circulatory system in humans. The essential components of the circulatory system in humans are blood, blood vessels, and the heart. Blood is the fluid that flows in blood vessels and consists of plasma, red blood cells, RBC, white blood cells, WBC, and platelets. Its major roles are: it transports substances like digested food from the small intestine to the other parts of the body. It carries oxygen from the lungs to the cells of the body. It also transports waste for removal from the body. Blood is composed of a fluid called plasma in which different types of cells are suspended. One type of cell is the red blood cells, RBC, which contain a red pigment called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin binds with oxygen and transports it to all the parts of the body and ultimately to all the cells. The presence of hemoglobin makes blood red. The blood also has white blood cells, WBC, which fight against germs that may enter our body. After an injury, a clot is formed at the place of bleeding because of the presence of another type of cell in the blood, called platelets. Blood vessels. Blood vessels are like tubes in our body through which blood flows. There are two types of blood vessels present in the body: arteries and veins. Arteries carry oxygen-rich blood from the heart to all parts of the body. Since the blood flow is rapid and at high pressure, the arteries have thick elastic walls. Veins are the vessels that carry carbon dioxide-rich blood from all parts of the body back to the heart. The veins have thin walls. There are valves present in veins that allow blood to flow only towards the heart. Arteries divide into smaller vessels. On reaching the tissues, they divide further into extremely thin tubes called capillaries. The capillaries join to form veins that empty into the heart. Throbbing movement in vessels is called the pulse, and it is due to the blood flowing in the arteries. The number of beats per minute is called the pulse rate. A resting person usually has a pulse rate between 72 and 80 beats per minute. Heart. The heart is an organ that beats continuously to act as a pump for the transport of blood, which carries other substances with it. The heart is located in the chest cavity with its lower tip slightly tilted towards the left. Transportation in an instant messages, and PLANTS11. TRANSPORT a TIONNNEM a LSANDLINTS. 34. The heart is roughly the size of our fist. The heart has 4 chambers. The partition between the chambers helps to avoid mixing up of blood rich in oxygen with the blood rich in carbon dioxide. The 2 upper chambers are called the atria, singular, atrium, and the 2 lower chambers are called the ventricles. To understand the functioning of the circulatory system, start from the right side of the heart in Fig. 11.2 and follow the arrows. These arrows show the direction of the blood flow from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart from where it is pumped to the rest of the body. Heartbeat. The walls of the chambers of the heart are made up of muscles. These muscles contract and relax rhythmically. This rhythmic contraction, followed by its relaxation, constitutes a heartbeat. Heartbeat can be felt with the help of an instrument called a stethoscope. It amplifies the sound of the heart. Circulatory system in other animals. Animals such as sponges and hydra do not possess any circulatory system. The water in which they live brings food and oxygen as it enters their bodies. The water carries away waste materials and carbon dioxide as it moves out. Thus, these animals do not need a circulatory fluid like the blood. Excretion in animals. When our cells perform their functions, certain waste products are released. These are toxic and hence need to be removed from the body. The process of removal of wastes produced in the cells of the living organisms is called excretion. The parts involved in excretion form the excretory system. The way in which waste chemicals are removed from the body of the animal depends on the availability of water. Aquatic animals, like fishes, excrete cell waste as ammonia which directly dissolves in water. Land animals like birds, lizards, snakes excrete a semi-solid, white-colored compound, uric acid. Excretory system in humans. The excretory system of humans consists of 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, a urinary bladder, and urethra. The process to filter the blood is done by the blood capillaries in the kidneys. When the blood reaches the kidneys, it contains both useful and harmful substances. The useful substances are absorbed back into the blood. The wastes dissolved in water are removed as urine. From the kidneys, the urine goes into the urinary bladder through tube-like ureters. It is stored in the bladder and is passed out through the urinary opening at the end of a muscular tube called the urethra. An adult human being normally passes about 1-1.8 L of urine in 24 hours. The urine consists of 95% water, 2.5% urea, and 2.5% other waste products. Sweating is also a form of excretion in humans. It contains water and salts and helps to cool our body. In case of kidney failure, waste products start accumulating in the blood, and they need periodic filtration through an artificial kidney. This process is called dialysis. Transport of substances in plants. Plants take water and mineral nutrients from the soil through the roots and transport them to the leaves. The leaves prepare food for the plant, using water and carbon dioxide during photosynthesis. Transport of water and minerals. Plants absorb water and minerals by the roots. The roots have root hair. The root hair increases the surface area of the root for the absorption of water and mineral nutrients dissolved in water. Plants have pipe-like vessels to transport water and nutrients from the soil. The vessels are made of special cells, forming the vascular tissue. A tissue is a group of cells that perform a specialized function in an organism. Xylem and phloem transport substances in plants. The vascular tissue for the transport of water and nutrients in the plant is called the xylem. The xylem forms a continuous network of channels that connects roots to the leaves through the stem and branches, and thus transports water to the entire plant. The vascular tissue for the transport of food to the various parts of the plant is called the phloem. Transpiration. The water evaporates through the stomata present on the surface of the leaves by process of transpiration. Transpiration generates a force that pulls up water absorbed by the roots from the soil to reach the stem and leaves. Transpiration also cools the plant. Interesting points. The English physician, William Harvey, AD 1578-1657, discovered the circulation of blood. Reproduction is the biological process by which new individual organisms called offspring are produced from their parents. Modes of reproduction. There are several ways by which plants produce their offspring. These are categorized into 2 types, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, new plants are obtained without the production of seeds. Following are its major types. Vegetative propagation. It is a type of asexual reproduction in which new plants are produced from roots, stems, leaves, and buds. Since reproduction is through the vegetative parts of the plant, it is known as vegetative propagation. Plants produced by vegetative propagation take less time to grow and bear flowers and fruits earlier than those produced from seeds. The new plants are exact copies of the parent plant, as they are produced from a single parent. Budding. The small bulb-like projection coming out from the yeast cell is called a bud. The bud gradually grows and gets detached from the parent cell and forms a new yeast cell. The new yeast cell grows, matures, and produces more yeast cells. Sometimes, another bud arises from the bud forming a chain of buds. Fragmentation. When water and nutrients are available, algae break up into 2 or more fragments. These fragments or pieces grow into new individuals. Spore formation. Spores are asexual reproductive bodies. Under favorable conditions, A spore germinates and develops into a new individual. Plants such as moss and ferns reproduce by this mean. Sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, new plants are obtained from seeds which are produced by the fusion of a male and a female gamete present in the flower of the plant. The flower is the reproductive part of plant and consists of stamen and pistil. Stamens are the male reproductive part and consist of anther and filament. The anther contains pollen grains which produce male gametes. The pistil is the female reproductive part. A pistil consists of stigma, style, and ovary. The ovary contains one or more ovules. The female gamete or the egg is formed in an ovule. A male and a female gamete fuse to form a zygote. Flowers that contain either only pistil or only stamens are called unisexual flowers. Corn, papaya, and cucumber produce unisexual flowers. Flowers that contain both stamens and pistil are called bisexual flowers. Mustard, rose, and petunia has bisexual flowers. Both male and female unisexual flowers may be present in the same plant or in different plants. 1238. Pollination. The transfer of pollen from the anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. It takes place in plants with the help of wind, water, and insects. It is of two types: self-pollination and cross-pollination. If the pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant, it is called self-pollination. When the pollen of a flower lands on the stigma of flower of a different plant of the same kind, it is called cross-pollination. Fertilization. The process of fusion of male and female gametes is called fertilization. The cell which results after the fusion of the gametes is called a zygote, which develops into an embryo. Fruits and seed formation. After fertilization, the ovary grows into a fruit and other parts of the flower fall off. The fruit is the ripened ovary. The seeds develop from the ovules. The seed contains an embryo enclosed in a protective seed coat. Seed dispersal. Seed dispersal is the movement, spread, or transport of seeds away from the parent plant. It helps the plants to prevent overcrowding, avoid competition for sunlight, water, and minerals, and invade new habitats. It is aided by the wind, water, and animals. By wind, winged seeds of drumstick and maple, light seeds of grasses or hairy seeds of ache, madar, and hairy fruit of sunflower get blown off with the wind to faraway places. By water, coconut seeds have the floating ability in the form of the spongy or fibrous outer coat. By animals, some seeds are dispersed by animals. Especially spiny seeds, xanthium and urina, get attached with hooks of animals and are carried to distant places. Key terms and facts. Motion could be along a straight line, circular or periodic. The speed of objects helps us to decide which one is moving faster than the other. The distance moved by an object in a unit time is called speed. Its basic unit is meter per second, m. It could also be expressed in other units such as min or km. Speed, total distance covered, total time taken. If the speed of an object moving along a straight line keeps changing, its motion is said to be non-uniform. On the other hand, an object moving along a straight line with a constant speed is said to be in uniform motion. Periodic events are used for the measurement of time. The periodic motion of a pendulum has been used to make clocks and watches. Nowadays, most clocks or watches have an electric circuit with one or more cells. These clocks are called quartz clocks. The time measured by quartz clocks is much more accurate. Sundials, water clocks, and sand clocks are some other examples of time measuring devices. The basic unit of time is a second. Its symbol is S. Larger units of time are minutes, min, and hours. Age. Symbols of all units are written in the singular. For example, 50 kilometers and not 50 kms, or 8 centimeters and not 8 cms. The distance time graph for the motion of an object moving with a constant speed is a straight line. Key terms and facts. It is convenient to represent electric components by symbols. Using these, an electric circuit can be represented by a circuit diagram. When an electric current flows through wire, the wire gets heated. It is the heating effect of current. This effect has many applications such as electric heater, bulb. The filament, thin wire of an electric bulb gets heated to such high temperature that it starts glowing. Wires made from some special materials melt quickly and break when large electric currents are passed through them. These materials are used for making electric fuses that prevent fires and damage to electric appliances and act as a safety device. When an electric current flows through wire, it behaves like magnet. This is the magnetic effect of the electric current. A current-carrying coil of an insulated wire wrapped around a piece of iron is called an electromagnet. Electromagnets are used in many devices such as electric bell, magnetic separator, etc. Terms and facts. Light travels along the straight lines. Any polished or shining surface acts as a mirror. The mirror changes the direction of light that falls on it. This change of direction by a mirror is called the reflection of light. An image formed by a plane mirror is erect, virtual, of the same size, and is at the same distance from the mirror as the object is in front of it. The image is formed behind the mirror. In the mirror, the right appears left and the left appears right. Only sides are interchanged. The image does not appear upside down. If the reflecting surface of spherical mirror is concave, it is called concave mirror. If the reflecting surface is convex, then it is a convex mirror. The image formed by a concave mirror can be smaller or larger in size than the object. The image may also be real or virtual. A concave mirror can form a real and inverted image. When the object is placed very close to the mirror, the image formed is virtual, erect, and magnified. Concave mirrors are used for many purposes such as medical examination, torch reflectors, headlights of cars and scooters, etc. An image formed by a convex mirror is erect, virtual, and smaller in size than the object. Convex mirrors are used as side mirrors in automobiles. Lenses are widely used in spectacles, telescopes, and microscopes. Those lenses which feel thicker in the middle than at the edges are convex lenses. Those which feel thinner in the middle than at the edges are concave lenses. A convex lens can form a real and inverted image. When the object is placed very close to the lens, the image formed is virtual, erect, and magnified. When used to see objects magnified, the convex lens is called magnifying glass. A concave lens always forms an erect, virtual, and smaller image than the object. A convex lens converges, bends inward, the light generally falling on it. Therefore, it is called a converging lens. On the other hand, a concave lens diverges, bends outward, the light, and is called a diverging lens. White light is composed of 7 colors: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red, vigor. A natural phenomenon is anything that occurs on its own in nature without any kind of human intervention such as weather, erosion, etc. Lightning and earthquakes are also natural phenomenon and are destructive in nature. Lightning. Lightning is a kind of electric spark, but on a huge scale. It is caused by the accumulation of electric charges in the clouds. Electric charge. It is the physical property of matter that causes it to experience a force when placed in an electric field. An electroscope may be used to detect whether a body is charged or not. Types of charges and their interaction. There are 2 kinds of charges, positive charge and negative charge. Like charges repel and unlike charges attract each other. Some objects can be charged by rubbing with other objects. The electrical charges produced by rubbing are called static charges. Transfer of charge. Electrical charge can be transferred from a charged object to another through a metal conductor. When charges move, they constitute an electric current. The process of transfer of charge from a charged object to the earth is called earthing. Earthing is provided in buildings to protect residents from electrical shocks due to any leakage of electrical current. Lightning as a process. During the development of a thunderstorm, the air currents move upward while the water droplets move downward. These vigorous movements cause separation of charges. The positive charges collect near the upper edges of the clouds, and the negative charges accumulate near the lower edges. There is accumulation of positive charges near the ground also. When the magnitude of the accumulated charges becomes very large, the air, which is normally a poor conductor of electricity, is no longer able to resist their flow. Negative and positive charges meet, producing streaks of bright light and sound. These streaks get visible in the form of lightning. The process is called an electric discharge. The process of electric discharge between clouds and the earth or between different clouds causes lightning. Lightning safety. Lightning strike could destroy life and property. It is, therefore, necessary to take measures for protection. During lightning and thunderstorm, no open place is safe, including open vehicles, tall trees, etc. Carrying an umbrella is not at all a good idea during thunderstorms. If no shelter is available in an open field, shelter under shorter truss can be taken. It is advisable to stay away from poles or other metal objects and not to lie on the ground. Contact with electrical equipment must be avoided. It is safer to use mobile and cordless phones. Bathing should be avoided during thunderstorms to avoid contact with running water. Electrical appliances like computers, TVs, etc. should be unplugged. Electrical lights can remain on. They do not cause any harm. Lightning conductors, it is a device used to protect buildings from the effect of lightning. A metallic rod, taller than the building, is installed in the walls of the building. One end of the rod is kept out in the air and the other is buried deep in the ground. The rod provides easy route for the transfer of electric charge to the ground. Earthquakes. An earthquake is a sudden shaking or trembling of the earth which lasts for a very short time. It is caused by a disturbance deep inside the Earth's crust. Earthquakes can cause floods, landslides, and tsunamis. Major tsunami occurred in the Indian Ocean on December 26, 2004. Causes of an earthquake. The tremors are caused by the disturbance deep down inside the uppermost layer of the Earth called the crust. Crust is not in one piece. Each fragment of it is called a plate. These plates are in continual motion. When these plates brush past one another, or a plate goes under another due to collision, they cause disturbance in the Earth's crust. It is this disturbance that shows up as an earthquake on the surface of the Earth. Tremors on the Earth can also be caused when a volcano erupts, or a meteor hits the Earth, or an underground nuclear explosion is carried out. However, most earthquakes are caused by the movement of Earth's plates. The boundaries of the plates are the weak zones where earthquakes are more likely to occur and are also known as seismic or fault zones. In India, the most threatened areas are Kashmir, Western and Central Himalayas, the whole of Northeast, Rann of Kutch, Rajasthan, and the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Some areas of South India also fall in the danger zone. Measuring earthquake. The power of an earthquake is expressed in terms of a magnitude on a scale called the Richter scale. Destructive earthquakes have magnitudes higher than 7 on the Richter scale. Both Bhuj, 2001, and Kashmir, 2005, earthquakes had magnitudes greater than 7.5. Richter scale is not linear. This means that an earthquake of magnitude 6 does not have 1.5 times the destructive energy of an earthquake of magnitude 4. In fact, an increase of 2 in magnitude means 1,000 times more destructive energy. Therefore, an earthquake of magnitude 6 has 1,000 times more destructive energy than an earthquake of magnitude 4. The tremors produce waves on the surface of the Earth. These are called seismic waves. The waves are recorded by an instrument called the seismograph. Protection against earthquakes. Earthquakes cannot be predicted. Also, major earthquakes are much less frequent, but they can cause immense damage to buildings, bridges, dams, and people. It is, therefore, important to take necessary precautions for protection. The buildings in these zones should be designed as quake-safe to withstand major tremors. In highly seismic areas, the use of mud or timber is better than using heavy construction material. If buildings may catch fire due to an earthquake and must be equipped with firefighting equipment. The Central Building Research Institute, WARCI, has developed know-how to make quake-resistant houses. In the event of an earthquake strike, an individual may take the following safety steps. At home, take shelter under a table and stay there till the shaking stops. Stay away from tall and heavy objects that may fall on you. If present in bed, do not get up and protect the head with a pillow. In outdoors, find a clear spot, away from buildings, trees, and overhead power lines. Drop to the ground. If in a car or a bus, do not come out. Ask the driver to drive slowly to a clear spot. Interesting points. As early as 600 billion C, ancient Greeks knew that when amber, a kind of resin, is rubbed with fur, it starts attracting light objects such as hair. In 1752, Benjamin Franklin, an American scientist, showed that lightning and the spark from the clothes are essentially the same phenomena.